Based on the story of the same name from the Railway series book Gallant Old Engine, Steamroller is the 12th episode of the 4th series and introduces us to our first antagonist for the 4th series, George the Steamroller. Because Sir Handel keeps slipping between the tracks, he has recently had some new wheels fitted with broad tyres and is very proud of them. But one day the other engines tease him due to their unusual shape, calling them steamroller wheels, much to his annoyance. Peter Sam, who is sympathetic, refers to when he got his special funnel when was teased about it until the other engines learned how useful it is. Sir Handel, who believes the other engines are simply jealous, announces that his wheels are just as special as Peter Sam's funnel and claims that he could go faster than the others. Scarlowe, attempted to bring Sir Handel down to size, tells him that he could be the perfect engine to deal with George, a grumpy anti-railway steamroller who is working nearby. Sir Handel proudly proclaims that he will send George packing. The next morning, Sir Handel and George meet at a level crossing. The two immediately develop a mutual animosity towards each other, with George accusing Sir Handel of pretending to be as good as him. Sir Handel simply replies that he is better and cheerfully puffs away, leaving George fuming. Sir Handel is later bringing a special train home when he comes up alongside George again on the road alongside the railway. George is travelling very close to the tracks, making it very difficult for Sir Handel to pass. Sir Handel whistles to get George's attention, but George takes no notice and does not give Sir Handel any room to pass. Both of them start trading insults. Sir Handel attempts to pass George, who, not wanting to admit defeat, deliberately rams into some of Sir Handel's trucks, causing them to derail and spill coal on the line side. Sir Handel, George and their drivers get into an argument on whose fault it is until a policeman arrives to find out what's going on.
I'm not sure what's going on here. It's obviously someone's birthday party or something. But whatever it is, just stop it outside!
Everyone stops arguing and soon gets to work clearing up the mess. The next day, workmen put up a fence between the road and the railway so as to prevent further accidents from occurring. When the work is done, they leave, taking George with them. Sir Handel, thinking he sent George away, claims credit and becomes more conceited than ever, much to the despair of the other engines. Later, however, some boys arrive and immediately start teasing Sir Handel about his confrontation race with George. Sir Handel, now embarrassed of the incident, has never spoken about steamrollers since. This episode marks the first appearance of George, a grumpy, ill-tempered and mean steamroller who dislikes all of the engines, even the ones who try to be nice to him. He is no friend of the railway.
Railways are no good, turn them into roads, pull them up, turn them into roads. Railways are no good, turn them into roads, pull them up, turn them into roads.
George is happiest when he is rolling, but enjoys causing bother for the engines across the island too. He is also grouchy, disagreeable, and his unpleasant and unfriendly attitude towards the engines and stubborn nature are often the cause of chaos and disruption. An example being when he crashed into Sir Handel's train for calling him a great clumsy road hog. George also does not necessarily get along very well with other road vehicles, as he insulted Caroline in the Series 5. George is based on an Avon Bartford R-Class steamroller, and George is the next in a long line of antagonists to the series. It's quite ironic that he's the second road vehicle antagonist to be introduced since Bulgy from Series 3. George's theme is another one of my favourites from Michael Donnell and Jr. Campbell, because like with Duncan's theme, it really sums up the kind of character that George is. And the theme was so popular they even used it for scenes where George wasn't a part of the episodes. Just shows you how much the team loved Michael Donnell and Jr. Campbell's music. This episode also marks the last of Sir Handel's speaking and starring roles until the 10th series episode A Smooth Ride. And the classic series just wouldn't be the same without him. But for a final speaking and starring role in the classic series, this really is a gem. Getting to see more of Sir Handel's personality, how boastful he could be, and how short-tempered he could be when it comes to obstacles like George.
He said, "You're Sir Handel, I suppose." Sir Handel was standing no nonsense. "And you, I suppose, are George, yes. I've heard of you." "And I've heard of you. You swank around with your steamroller wheels pretending you're as good as me." "Actually," retorted Sir Handel, "I'm better. Goodbye."
The collision between George and Sir Handel in the episode was also based on an event that took place in Muskerry, County Cork, Ireland in 1927. And this photo looks a lot more devastating and serious than it did in Steamroller. But I think they managed to pull off the collision really well in this episode, and I really love the insults Sir Handel and George throw at each other before the collision. It's just really fun to listen to.
Get out of my way, you great clumsy road dog! Huh. I don't move for imitation steamrollers.
And the accident and confrontation between Sir Handel and George was obviously George's fault because we see him deliberately ramming into the trucks. Even though George tries to blame Sir Handel for the accident, we all know it was George's fault because it was deliberate. We saw him deliberately ram into the trucks, but he still tried to play the blame game because he's not one to admit when he's at fault, which is another fun part about the character. Someone who hates railways and is not willing to take the blame when he's made a mistake. This is another one of those episodes I used to recreate countless times with my Ertl models, and I've always had a ton of fun recreating the crash for the episode. And for some reason Vineas gets a cameo in this episode despite the fact that he's supposed to be at the works being mended, and isn't supposed to be seen until a later episode. Yeah, it is kind of weird that Vineas would get a cameo in this episode when he's meant to be at the works. At least we got the cameo from Duke as well though. Steamroller is Sir Handel's final major appearance in the Classics series, and he definitely goes out with a bang, or should I say crash in this episode. And it introduces us to another antagonist for the TV series in George. It's a fun episode that I do highly recommend not skipping, especially if you love confrontations between a good character and a bad character. It's one that's definitely worth a watch.